Assalamu alaikum students, hopefully you are fine. Today date is 23rd December 2022 and day is Friday. Today we will study about weathering and erosion. So today our topic is weathering. Last time we studied about ozone layer. So before starting the new lesson, I will ask a few questions from you. Okay, what is ozone? What do you know about ozone? Okay, yes, ozone is a gas in the Earth's atmosphere. It is created by a reaction between ultraviolet light and oxygen. Okay, can anyone tell me what is the color of ozone? Yes, ozone has a pale blue color. Okay, and what it smells? How ozone smells? Yes, it smells similar to chlorine, which you know that it is present in bleach and it is also sometimes used to disinfect swimming pools. Okay, now next question, the why we are discussing about ozone layer. The main thing is why is ozone layer important? What is the importance of ozone layer? Yes, the sun's radiation, as you know, that it keeps the earth warm. So because we need sun's radiation for plants and other living things to live, but part of sun radiations are called ultraviolet radiations. Some of this is necessary for life, but higher amounts of ultraviolet radiations are not good for us. They are harmful for us. So ozone layer, it keeps out most of the harmful ultraviolet radiations. Yes, ozone layer, it keeps out most of the ultraviolet radiations. So that is why this is the importance of ozone layer. Okay, so this was the importance of ozone layer. Now can you tell me, if I specifically talk about the ozone gas, why is ozone gas harmful? Yes, ozone is a very active gas, and if it is lower down in the atmosphere, like if it is closer to living things, it can harm us. Now how it will harm us? Like it can damage, it is so harmful that you can guess from that it can damage the leaves of plants, and it can also affect them like in photosynthesis. It will affect the way how they use sunlight to produce food. And if I specifically talk about humans, ozone gas can cause headache, eye irritation, coughs and chest discomfort in humans. It is also one of the active gas in smoke. You know about smoke? Yes, that is the most important issue and one of the most important problem that we are facing today. It is the polluted fog that is found in mostly bigger cities, like we are facing it in Lahore. Okay, and what I told you about the international action on the damage of ozone layer. Yes, scientists, you know that they have found out that there are some chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons. They are damaging the ozone layer, and the chlorofluorocarbons are used in fridges and air conditioners. So, 197 countries, you know, they have signed an agreement that is called as Montreal Protocol, and it is signed to reduce the use of chlorofluorocarbons. So, inshallah, hopefully, it will restore the ozone layer in the atmosphere. So now we will start our topic, that is weathering. So our topic is weathering and weathering. How weathering occurs and what is actually weathering. So we will start from here. So basically weathering is when rocks broken down into smaller pieces. When rock is broken into smaller pieces due to change in atmospheric conditions, it is called weathering. Now there is another term along with weathering, like if these smaller pieces, they move from one place to another. So students, weathering and erosion, they are processes that help to form soil. How? What is weathering? When rock is broken down into smaller pieces due to different changes in atmospheric conditions, this process is called weathering. However, if the sediments and fragments of rock, they are moved from one place to another by wind or by water, this process is called erosion. So you can know, you will know about what is the difference between weathering and erosion. When rocks are broken down into smaller pieces, it is called weathering, and when these pieces of rocks, they are moved from one place to another, this is called erosion. So this is basically a difference between weathering and erosion. Now we will discuss about the types of weathering. What are different types of weathering? So students, there are three different types of weathering. So we will firstly start from mechanical weathering. Three different types of weathering, but firstly we will start from mechanical weathering. So students, in mechanical weathering, water will move into the holes of rocks. Like if there are some holes in the rocks, then water will move into them and then it will expand and then it will crack the rock. Mechanical weathering basically happens when rock is broken down into smaller pieces. One way, if I talk about it different ways, one way is that it can happen is when water gets into holes in the rocks. Like if there are some holes because of different reasons in the rocks and water moves into those holes of rocks. Like suppose if there is rain and if because of the rain water goes down into the holes of those rocks and then it freezes over there. Maybe the temperature of that area has fallen down and because of lower temperature water freezes in the holes of rocks, and if water freezes, you know, when water will freeze it expands. So if it expands, it will cracks the rocks because water has occupied a space in the holes of rocks, and if it has frozen down, so it will ultimately cracks the rocks. Okay students, I have a question from you. This was about mechanical weathering. Like how we have already read that mechanical weathering is that when rock is broken down into smaller pieces. So this was one way, this was the first type, like through mechanical weathering, how rocks will be broken down into smaller pieces. It is like if the water has moved down into the holes of rocks and then water will expand over there and it will then cracks the rocks. Now I have a question. Have you noticed now students, have you noticed that stones and rocks that are in rivers or that are near the sea, they are usually smooth. Like the stones or rocks that are present near to the seas, they are very smooth. Do you know what is the reason why are they so smooth? It is because of the constant mechanical weathering. Fast flowing water, it carries, you know, sediments along with it. So when these sediments, they move over the rocks, they erode that surface. So the surface of rocks, they are smooth from there. Like you file your nails, so same in the same way, the surface of rock is smooth from their surface. This is all because of the mechanical weathering. Now students, we will discuss the second type of weathering, that is chemical weathering. So now discuss like what is chemical weathering. Actually chemical weathering is that when rocks are dissolved. So students, if we discuss about the chemical weathering occurs when rock dissolves in water or weak acids, like weak acids or acidic water. So do you know what is acidic water, or if I say what is acidic rain, you might are familiar with it. So students, acidic rain is basically when different harmful chemicals or gases from our atmosphere are dissolved in rain. Like if there are, because of the pollution from our automobiles, if there are sulfur dioxide, if there is nitrous oxide, if these harmful gases are present in the atmosphere, and if there is rain, the water from the rain, it will react with sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide, and it will form the acid rain. So this is what we call acidic water. So when this acidic rain will fall on the rocks, it will ultimately dissolve those rocks. Chemical weathering is because of dissolving rocks occurs when rocks dissolve in acidic water. Chemical weathering occurs when rock dissolves in water or weak acids. Actually, how it occurs in reality, water runs through tiny holes in limestone and dissolves some of the rocks. Some of the rocks, they are made up of limestones. So water runs through tiny holes in limestone and dissolves some of the rocks. As the water runs through the holes in the rock, and it starts the process of erosion. So you can guess from here, like if there are holes already present in the rocks, and if acidic water moves down into those holes, it will erode that piece of rock with it. So the water, this is called chemical weathering. This is actually what we call as chemical weathering. So students, this is all about chemical weathering. Now we will discuss the last type of weathering, and that is organic weathering, and we can also call it biological weathering. So students, this is the third type of weathering. Like through this organic weathering occurs, and that is the organic weathering. So in organic weathering, roots of plants, they grow in rocks. So when the roots of plants, they will grow in rocks, it will ultimately create holes in the rocks. So because of the roots of plants, there will be holes in the rocks. And there is, because we are discussing about the biological weathering, so along with plants, animals also play an important role in organic weathering. How? Let's discuss. So students, this is organic weathering. First thing is that if the plant's roots, they grow in rocks, they will create holes in them and they will make the rocks weak. So second thing is about the animal scratches. Animal scratches, whenever animal walks on rocks, their scratches, they will make the rocks weaker. So it will help, they both, roots of plants and animal scratches, they play an important role in breaking down the rocks. And this is called biological weathering and organic weathering. Organic weathering is also called biological weathering. Why we call it biological weathering? Can you guess? Okay, yes. Because plants and animals, they are responsible for this type of weathering. So, plants are also living things, and animals, they are also living things. So, it's called biological weathering. Organic weathering and biological weathering, it's caused by living things. It happens when plants break up rocks. How plants break up rocks? This is what I had already told you. Their roots push through the small holes in the rock and they enlarge them. It also happens when animals scratch rocks. So this is how plants, roots and animal scratches, they weak the rocks and they are playing an important role in organic weathering. Apart from it, you might have seen it on buildings. Have you seen some of the buildings where plants grow on walls or on roofs and they make cracks in the stones? Yes, you might have seen in some of the old houses, like plants have grown on walls or roofs and they make cracks in the stone. So you can say that human activity also causes biological weathering. Plants and animals, they also release acids that dissolve some rocks. So this is about organic weathering. We have firstly discussed about weathering, then we discussed about erosion. So now we will just complete this lesson. But I will ask you some questions. So firstly, tell me what is weathering and what is erosion. Yes, when rock is broken into smaller pieces due to changes in atmospheric conditions, this process is called weathering. And if the sediments and fragments of rock, they are moved from one place to another by wind or by water, this process is called erosion. So if the rock is broken down into smaller pieces, this is called weathering. And if these pieces are moved from one place to another, this process is called erosion. So this is all about weathering and erosion. After discussing this thing, we had discussed about how does weathering occur. So can you tell me the three ways through which weathering occur? Yes, there are actually three types of weathering. One is mechanical weathering, other is chemical weathering, and the last one that we discussed was organic weathering. So now let's start from the very first weathering, that was mechanical weathering. What is mechanical weathering? Yes, a mechanical weathering is that when water gets into the holes in the rock and it freezes over there. If the water gets into the holes that are present in the rock and it will freeze over there, as the water freezes, it will expand, and when the water will expand, it will cracks the rock. This is called mechanical weathering. And what is chemical weathering? The second type of weathering that we discussed was chemical weathering. Yes, chemical weathering occurs when rock dissolves in water or weak acids. Like water runs through tiny holes that are present in rocks. And if the rocks are made up of limestone, you know limestone, it dissolves easily. So if the rocks are made up of limestones, then of course the acid rain water, it will dissolve the rock more easily. I am discussing here a term that is acid rain, or you can say I am asking about the weak acids. Can you tell me what is acid rain, or how the water, how the rainwater becomes acidic? Yes, the rainwater becomes acidic when, as you know, if we are living in some bigger cities, there is pollution all around. So our automobiles, they release pollutants like sulfur dioxide. It's a gas. Nitrous oxide. It's also a harmful gas. When these harmful gases they are released in the atmosphere, what they will do, they will react with the water that is present in the rain, and when sulfur dioxide and water will react, they will form sulfuric acid, and if nitrous oxide and water will react, it will form nitric acid. So these are some of the harmful acids that are present in the acidic rain. So when this acidic rain will fall down on the rocks, it will ultimately dissolve those rocks. So this is how chemical weathering occurs. Like water runs, acidic water especially, we are talking about the acidic water or the water that is made up of weak acids. It will run through tiny holes in the rocks, and it will dissolve some part of that rock. So this is how chemical weathering will occur. And last weathering that we discussed was about the organic weathering. So students, can you tell me what is organic weathering? Yes, organic weathering occurs because of the plants and also because of animals. If the plants roots they grow on the surface of rocks. Of course, when the plants will grow on rocks, it has roots, and the roots will be inside the rocks. So the roots of plants they will create holes in rocks, and if the roots of plants are creating holes in rocks, so it's very you must understand that if there are holes in something, ultimately the thing will be weak. So if there are holes in the rocks, so the rocks will be weak. And secondly, how animals are playing a role in organic weathering. You know, when the animals move on the surface of rocks, so because of the movement of animals, scratches, you know, they create scratches on the surface of rock. And when continuously animals are moving on a rock, they will create scratches on the surface of rock, and because of that, the rock will become weak, and it will ultimately result in the breaking down of particles of rock. So this is how plants and animals
They both are playing an important role in organic weathering. So students, I have told you another name of organic weathering. What is that? Yes, of course, it's biological weathering. So can you tell me why we are calling organic weathering also biological weathering? Why we are calling this weathering as biological weathering? Yes, we are calling organic weathering, we are calling this weathering as organic weathering or biological weathering because this weathering is caused by living things. As we have already discussed that plants and animals, they both are playing an important role in this weathering. So because of the plant's role and animals' role, this weathering is called as biological weathering. So students, these are the three types of mechanical weathering and chemical weathering. These are the three types of weathering. First is mechanical weathering, second is chemical weathering, and third is organic weathering. So through these three ways, weathering occurs. Weathering is basically the broken down of rocks into smaller changes into smaller pieces because of the changes in atmospheric conditions. As we have already discussed the three forms, so you might be aware of the atmospheric conditions that are changing continuously and weathering occurs. One thing is that if the water has moved into the rocks, holes in the rocks, and it has frozen down over there, and it expands and it cracks the rock because of lower temperature. So this was mechanical weathering. And if because of atmospheric changes, like if there is more pollution in the atmosphere, it will make release of acidic rain in the on rocks, and because of it rock surface will be dissolved in it, and this was chemical weathering. And third one that we discussed was organic weathering, was because of the plants and because of animals. So these are the three ways through which weathering occur. So students, hopefully you have understood this topic. Next time we will discuss more about erosion. Until that time, Allah Hafiz.